Sometimes, a crime defies every rule of logic. The evidence contradicts itself, suspects vanish into thin air, and investigators find themselves at war with reality rather than a criminal. Tonight, we'll examine 5 such impossible crimes, cases so bizarre they still have experts scratching their heads. And make sure you stick around for the final chapter, where we dissect a mind-blowing clue that appeared 40 years after the crime was closed. If you crave these reality-warping mysteries, subscribe so you won't miss next Saturday's episode, where we dive into a phenomenon so eerie it's made seasoned detectives question whether time itself can be hacked. In 1998, a wealthy banker named Lucille Morris was found dead in her own mansion. The cause of death? A single stab wound, the weapon non-existent. What's more, eyewitnesses, including household staff, swore that the fatal struggle happened in a ground-floor study. But when the police arrived, there was no study to be found. They tore the place apart, measured walls, checked old blueprints and discovered references to a 10 by 12 room off the main hall. Yet physically, that space no longer existed. It was a blank stretch of wall, no door, no hidden compartment. The staff insisted the room had been there just an hour prior, where they last saw Lucille alive. Investigators suspected the staff was complicit in some elaborate cover-up, but no one could explain how an entire room could vanish without a single nail or panel out of place. 1 week later, a neighbour's security camera caught something bizarre at 2 a.m. The vague outline of a door in that same wall, pulsing in and out of view like static on an old TV. By daylight, the door was gone, replaced by solid plaster again. To this day, Lucille's murder remains unsolved. Officially, the police list it as an open homicide, though they've never recovered a knife or found the missing room. Some claim the house is haunted. Others believe a bizarre architectural trick is at play. Whatever the truth, it's an impossible crime that left investigators more lost than they've ever been. Picture a luxury jewelry store in Hong Kong, brimming with high-security lasers and unbreakable vaults. One quiet evening in 2015, the entire store's interior went dark. Not just the lights, but the electronics, the cameras, everything. When the power returned moments later, staff and guards were utterly confused. All the display cases were empty. At first they thought it was a cunning smash and grab or inside job, except the vault logs showed no forced entry and the security feed had an unbroken timestamp with no sign of anyone entering. The strangest part? The footage shows the showroom right before the blackout and then right after, with no time gap in between. 1 second the priceless gems are there. Next second they're gone, like they vanished between frames. Experts combed the data. A glitch, a hacked feed? Possibly. But an ex-MI6 operative was brought in for a private consultation, and his conclusion was chilling. The thieves used some kind of advanced light-bending technology, weaponized illusions, to mask their movements in plain sight. Over $50 million in diamonds disappeared that night, never to resurface on any black market. The store's owners keep the full details classified, terrified that the criminals might strike again with even more sophisticated illusions. Was it a new breed of technological burglary? Or was it something far more inexplicable, like the thieves were able to phase out matter itself? Officially, it's still on record as robbery by unknown means, but the rumor mill calls it the hologram heist. A heist that defied every known security measure and left 0 human footprints. In rural Ireland, 1975, a family of 4 perished in what looked like a tragic house fire. A week later, the father's best friend, Paul Nolan, arrived at the local station with a shocking statement. He had a dream where the father confessed to murder-suicide. Paul's description of the dream matched minor, undisclosed details from the scene, details the police hadn't released. Investigators initially dismissed it as nonsense, until Paul began predicting future evidence, the exact brand of accelerant found in the cellar, the father's old diaries hidden in a locked drawer. Paul's dreams led them to these diaries, which revealed a deeply disturbed mind. The father had written about voices commanding him to do unthinkable acts. Here's where it gets even weirder. Multiple witnesses testified that Paul was miles away on the night the diaries were discovered, nowhere near the property. Yet Paul swore he physically walked into the burnt house, rummaged around and grabbed them himself, handing them to the lead detective. Who was telling the truth? The diaries certainly appeared on the detective's desk, but half the police force insists Paul never set foot there. Even the neighbors said they saw an empty car drive up to the burned house door by itself. Officially, the case was deemed a murder-suicide with unofficially obtained evidence. But for Paul Nolan, the question remains, was he guided by the father's restless spirit, or did something else seize control of him and place those diaries into his hands? A 12-year-old girl, Joy Ingram, was kidnapped in broad daylight from a suburban neighborhood in Oregon. Desperate leads pointed toward an abandoned railroad track as the last known location. Police arrived on the scene only to witness something straight out of a nightmare. A lone figure, presumably the kidnapper, fleeing along the tracks, with Joy over his shoulder. Officers sprinted after them. They watched as the kidnapper turned a corner behind a cluster of trees and vanished. When the police followed, the tracks ended abruptly at a jagged drop-off. Beneath lay a thick forest, impossible to traverse without making noise or leaving tracks. Yet the kidnapper's footprints simply ended at the track's edge. For days they scoured the area with dogs, helicopters, even heat-seeking equipment. No sign of Joy, no sign of the kidnapper. Local urban legends soared that the old railroad track was cursed, that it led to nowhere or another dimension. Conspiracy theorists believed a secret government facility lay hidden in those woods. The family held on to hope, only for Joy to reappear 1 week later, wandering near her home, physically unharmed, but with zero memory of what happened. The only clue? A brand new silver pendant around her neck, inscribed with the phrase, "The journey continues." Joy couldn't recall how she got it, nor who gave it to her. The kidnapper remains unidentified, and the case is as mysterious as ever. Some investigators tried to connect it to local cult activity, others to a well-executed runaway scenario, but nothing explains how the tracks ended mid-air, or why Joy reappeared wearing a pendant that no one has been able to trace. Was it all orchestrated by a deranged mastermind, or did she slip through the cracks of reality itself? From a room that vanishes without a trace, to a store looted by illusions, to a kidnapper who disappeared at a dead-end track. These cases twist logic beyond recognition. Investigators do their best, but sometimes the facts lead us to doors that open onto the unknown. Which story rattled you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're captivated by unexplained phenomena, join me next Saturday, where a single clue from a 1982 cold case reappeared 40 years later, rewriting everything detectives thought they knew. Thank you for watching. Stay curious, stay safe, and remember, some crimes aren't just unsolved, they're impossible.